You are listening to the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast, presented by Littleton Coin Company. Every great civilization leaves behind its ruins, its art, and its heroes. But the story of America can be told through something smaller, something we can hold in our hands. A coin. Coins are the fingerprints of a nation. This is the story of the United States of America. From colonies to social experiment to global economic leader. Episode 16. The Uncertain Fate of America's Frontier. In the early 1800s, Americans talked about the West like it was a sure thing. Jefferson's vision of hard-working farmers thriving on endless land, a safety valve for the crowded East, a long-term investment that would pay dividends forever. Politicians sold it that way. Land companies sketched dream towns on maps. States borrowed heavily for canals and turnpikes, betting future taxes would cover the loans. Eastern banks snapped up those state bonds. The federal government sent surveyors, built forts, negotiated treaties, everything to unlock the frontier. Everyone figured the West would pay back handsomely. The only debate was how quickly. Then reality came crashing down. The Panic of 1837 slammed the economy, followed by another brutal contraction in 1839. Land values cratered, settlements stalled, canal and railroad projects sat half-finished, gathering dust. Western states like Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan racked up massive debts and came dangerously close to defaulting. Some did repudiate parts of their obligations, others restructured under pressure. The fallout hit the press with a vengeance. Niles's Weekly Register in Baltimore blasted the Western states for chasing visionary schemes and sticking the East with the tab. The New York Evening Post called Canal Mania a fever that had finally broken. British investors burned on American bonds, pulled back, and labeled the whole Western experiment premature. It wasn't just money lost, it was faith lost. Newspapers captured the growing disillusionment. The St. Louis, Missouri Republican reported settlers walking away from claims that weren't paying off. Cincinnati papers pointed out that many frontier farms were marginal at best, nothing like the paradise promised in the brochures. By 1847, the St. Joseph Gazette was saying Missouri's frontier dreams were writing checks on an empty future. Even the brief Oregon excitement in the mid-1840s fizzled fast. Eastern papers mocked the idea of trekking thousands of miles just to scratch out a living on tough land. Migration slowed again. The old enthusiasm cooled. The West wasn't worthless, far from it. It held enormous potential. But turning that potential into profit took time, railroads, markets, ports. And in the 1840s, patience was in short supply. For Southern planters, the math was different. They weren't chasing wheat profits or timber booms. Cotton was already king, pouring wealth into New Orleans, Mobile, and Charleston. The West mattered politically, not financially. Slavery powered the Southern economy, but Northern opposition was rising. To protect the institution, the South needed Senate balance, equal free and slave states, or at least close enough to block restrictions. Every new territory was a potential slave state. That's why the Missouri Compromise of 1820 had been so tense. 12 states each side, then Missouri came in slave, Maine free, and slavery barred north of 36 degrees and 30 minutes in the rest of the Louisiana Purchase. It was a fragile tie. By the 1840s, with Texas annexed and war with Mexico looming, the same question kept coming back. Whose West would it be? So far, the West was financially disappointing, but it remained politically essential. By the mid-1840s, the national mood had shifted noticeably. Congress cut back on internal improvements. Federal surveying slowed. Credit tightened. The big canal era wound down. The country wasn't calling the West a total bust. It was more like a collective exhale, a quiet decision to stop subsidizing ambition that hadn't yet delivered. Editorials grew skeptical, bankers grew cautious, settlers still went west, but the nation as a whole no longer treated the frontier as inevitable destiny. And then, right when doubt was thickest, everything flipped. January 1848, gold at Sutter's Mill. Word spread like wildfire. By spring, ships were leaving New York and Boston packed with prospectors. Others trekked the overland trails or risked the Panama crossing. Merchants loaded wagons with picks, pans, and overpriced supplies. The West wasn't just a possibility anymore. It was paying off in dust you could weigh on a scale. Liquidity had arrived, hard money, the kind collectors still chase today in the form of those rare and beautiful territorial pieces, like the 1849 Moffett & Company $5 gold pieces and iconic 1850s U.S. Assay Office ingots. California gold was pouring out of the ground, and almost overnight, the frontier went from burden to bonanza. The real story of the pre-gold rush west isn't failure. It is mismatched timing. The nation demanded quick returns before the infrastructure existed to produce them. When the payoff didn't come on schedule, belief wavered, just in time for the biggest payoff of all to arrive. Next time on Coins, Currency, and American History, despite wars and economic turmoil, the American economy exploded in the 1800s, fueled by no less than 9 major gold and silver rushes. From the early strikes in Georgia and the Carolinas to California and the Klondike, people flooded west seeking fortunes. New gold and silver coins were born from the mines, and 6 new U.S. branch mints sprang up to turn bullion into legal tender. And the discoveries would reshape money, power, and the map itself. Next time, gold rushes, silver booms, and new U.S. mints. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast presented by Littleton Coin Company. You can find out more about coins and currency in our free Learn Center at www.littletoncoin.com/learn. It's filled with fascinating facts about U.S. coins, world coins, ancient coins, paper money, and more, as well as helpful tips for collectors of all levels. You'll even find free collector guides, checklists, and virtual albums to help you get started and keep track of your growing collection. And while you're there, be sure to check out our online store. Visit www.littletoncoin.com today.